Hello, everybody, and welcome to Left Hand, Right Brain. I hope this podcast finds you well. And I know I say it every episode, but I say it for all your likes and subscribes, your rates and reviews. Appreciate. And if you like what you're hearing on this, okay, you probably find all the other podcasts on Left Hand, Right, wherever you get podcasts, or by going to YouTube, lefthandrightbrainpod.com. Follow me on all the socials. You'll probably like the other podcasts, like Help Me, I'm Scared, another podcast about horror films with Katie Bowman, or you'll probably like Let's Get Drunk and Talk About Your Wedding with hosts Jen and Mel. Both podcasts, pretty much exactly what they sound like. It's all in the title. Find those wherever you get podcasts, or on YouTube, probably wherever you found this podcast, you can find those as well. And that brings us to this week's episode, which is with Ben Dailey. He's a stand-up comedian, super funny dude. Moved to Denver about 5 years ago now. I always think of him as a new comic. Any comic who's come to Denver within the last 5 years, I think of as a new baby comic, which isn't fair to Ben. He's been doing it for a while. Moved to Denver 5 years ago. I only started really noticing, the first time I remember seeing him at an open mic was post-COVID. We were all kind of coming out of our secluded bubbles, our, what they call it, isolation tanks. We were coming off of that, and I remember seeing him in the back of Brew's Tap House, or the Brew's open mic. There's a garage, open air garage in the back of this brewery on Colfax. It was one of the first mics to come back post-COVID. That's where I remember seeing him there. Caught my attention, funny guy, working hard. He's constantly putting together road gigs, little tours he's doing constantly. Check out his podcast called Weekly Daily. It's on YouTube. I think it's other places, but that's where I mostly watch it now. I'm a big YouTube podcast. That's where I get a lot of my podcasts now, is on YouTube. Anyway, Ben's super funny. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast, check him out doing some stand-up, because he's doing it all over, all the time, all day, every day. I think it's Ben Dailey on all the socials. He opens up a lot about being having Lyme disease and his kind of journey from, finding out getting it, feeling something's wrong, going to all these doctors. It's a long, frustrating journey of doctors telling him that it's all in his head, or get on these antidepressants, and so finally getting diagnosed, and then his road to recovery with that, which is still an ongoing thing, something he has to live with. I appreciate you opening up about that, buddy. That was super interesting and fun conversation. We talk about some lighter-hearted stuff too, fashion. This hat comes up quite a bit. Yeah, I think we open up talking about my cowboy hat. So there it is, y'all. This is what a $400 cowboy hat looks like, or hat looks like. We talk about in the podcast. At this point, the hat has overshadowed the man, for sure. People don't think of me, they think of the hat. They don't even look me in the eye, they look at the hat. I'm a glorified hat rack at this point. But, you got to start somewhere. As long as I'm under the hat, people, I come with the hat, pretty much. If you want to book this hat on your next show, I'll be there as well, okay? I'm the manager for the hat. I'm done with the intro. Thank you so much, Ben, for being on. This is a great conversation. I'm excited for you to hear it. That being said, let's get to this week's LHRB podcast, part of Mile High Life, produced by Left Hand Right Brain Productions.
Cowboy hats are pretty expensive, yeah.
Good one. A good one is. The one I have is like a mid-range hat, and it's about $400.
That's a mid-range?
Yeah, the nice ones, the full beaver, you're looking at $1,000.
It's because the material?
Yeah, it's because the beaver pelt is, supply and demand.
Wow.
Is different. It went up because, beavers are not extinct, but it's not the same market it was back in the day.
That is
so
crazy.
But that's what you want out of a good quality hat.
Yeah, I didn't. My
water resistant.
My mom's family, mom's side of the family they're all like farmers, and I remember my uncle, he lost, or like somebody stole his cowboy hat, and he was so angry. I've never seen him that angry. And it was so weird because I went to college. He was like coincidentally on a school board meeting that happened in the basement of my dorm, which is like an hour away from where he lived. It was such a random coincidence. But somebody stole his hat, and he came to me, and he literally was like, "If you see anybody walking around campus with that, you get it back." And I was like, "Well, I think it's gone."
You
But
wouldn't have fought for his hat.
well, I was like, I don't even know.
I mean, yeah, these things are meant to last your lifetime almost. I mean, and they're meant for hard work.
Yeah.
Really, I went to a place in the and the lady the cow lot. Not the cow lot. The cow lot's a good place. I went to Greeley Hat Works, and I was like, "Are people really dropping $1,000 for like this weird camo hat?" And she's like, "Yeah,
that
people
is
work."
what's like
in
the
these hats.
lowest level if you're going to like a
You get,
hat
like, a
place?
haberdashery.
Yeah,
It's
that's
what a
the
hat
brand.
store. It's a hat store.
Okay,
It's
and
called a
what's like the
haberdashery.
lowest?
Like a ball cap.
No, the lowest end cowboy hat, like price wise.
Mm. I mean, you can get like a wool one at like a Murdoch's for like $60.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, and the cowboy thing is like, you can shape that to look like whatever. You cut the brim down.
oh, they customize it.
Yeah, I mean, like at a place like the Cow Lot, they have it kind of just like generic looking hat, and then they shape it to how you'd like it because you can get a bunch
Wow,
of different things.
that is wow. I
Yeah.
know we've talked about fashion briefly before,
Yeah,
and
I'm sorry. I used to poke at you a lot more on stage.
No, you're
about
good.
your-
Honestly,
your
I was
fashion choices.
I should. It's one of those things where I've never cared, but I've started to think more about how I present myself and how I look on stage because
Okay.
people judge you.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, not that I want to do anything fancy, but I probably should invest in just some like better
Yourself.
t-shirts. Yeah, just
Yourself,
some
really.
basic stuff. I don't know if I'll do $400 cowboy hat,
Well,
but
yeah. I mean, that's an and it was a gift. I got it. It was a gift. So,
okay. Nice.
I mean, I would do it again.
Yeah.
I want to get like a red one and a blue one.
Okay.
Once it's like once you start collecting something, you get into it. I
Yeah.
kind of did the same thing with shoes for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were your
I'm
Jordans
into
or
Red
what was
Wing-
your?
No, I'm into Red Wing shoes. Like boots.
Okay.
Looking boots. I got a pair of Chelsea's. I got a pair of Iron Rangers.
Okay. I'm
you
unfamiliar
not-
with those brands. I think I
No, it's
vaguely
all-
remember.
Red Wing is the brand.
Oh, and those are the
the
types of shoes within the brand. Gotcha. Yeah, I think I vaguely remember that. I used to work at a Dick's Sporting Goods as a in the shoe
I do
department,
love a Dick's.
and
That's where I got these joggers.
oh yeah,
Yeah, they have a in-store brand I think called like Versa, and they just have like really good like stretchy but like dressy looking stuff.
okay,
When I was working at the hotel, you had to wear like dress pants
yeah,
and stuff, and I was constantly like moving around doing like audio visual stuff, so like
Looking
wrenching
for-
something in, getting up and fixing a light, so you had to be able to move it.
gotcha.
So
Yeah, I got
that's
I got
choice.
fired from Dick's. That was
you weren't selling enough shoes.
wasn't selling enough shoes. No, that's I mean, long story short, it was like a weird miscommunication where they ended up firing me. It was totally like bogus, but it was kind of funny. It's kind of funny looking
Bogus.
back on
Yeah,
it.
you could dress like this guy. You don't think he can pull off
You
this
think I
look?
could? I don't know.
He's wearing a flannel and a beanie,
You think I could
and he's got the boots.
rock a beanie? I don't. The boots. I'm
Yes,
just.
you
I
could-
think
you
my
could wear a
stature is
beanie.
too small to wear big boots. That was my problem in middle school when Timbs were like had their
Well,
heyday.
those are too big. You can. I mean, these are. Do you think
These
those
are
look
s-
too big for this
no,
guy?
actually, those are a
Yeah.
little smaller.
Yeah.
Also covered by the jeans.
Yeah, the pants are also a part of that. As long as they're the overall shape of all your clothes.
Yeah. In order for me to wear boots like that, though, I would genuinely have to change my entire wardrobe.
Yeah, I mean,
I
you
can't wear
wearing-
boots with
your
these joggers and this
Yeah. Just a
t-shirt.
T-shirt. Yeah, you dress like you like just came from a jog
Yeah.
everywhere.
If you got these fancy boots down below, you gotta have some fancy
How
clothes
much you
up
think
top.
these are?
200.
Yeah, around there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, closer to 300. But
Oh
yeah.
wow. 350.
Yeah, I mean, this is leather, bro. This is American-made, handcrafted stuff.
I think
Not
I've told you
handcrafted,
before,
They have
but
machines, but they get their hands in there.
I don't know if I've ever purchased a piece of clothing or I guess shoes, running shoes. Maybe I did pay $200 one
Chelsea's, I
time,
got a pair of Chelsea's I like.
but probably $60 for an article of clothing is about as high as I've gone, other than some running shoes.
Okay.
which is not, not great, but also, I don't know.
Yeah. So when did this wanting to take yourself? And we will go back to you getting fired at Dick's.
Oh, okay.
But when did the wanting to take yourself more seriously on stage, or not? Well, your appearance, I guess.
Well, I mean, I'll have
Something
periods where I'll kind of just be like, I should probably upgrade my wardrobe. I don't usually do it, but I'll have that thought sometime. But I also, like a month or two ago, as I was going through my crisis of I'm balding, I need to find a hat, blah, 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 wearing the hat on stage, I became, I think, a little bit certainly self-conscious, but also I was kind of in a mental state where I was a little more anxious and not feeling incredible. So I was like overthinking how I was presenting myself on stage. And especially with that hat, I got a hat that was like a flat brim. And I just felt kind of like I was coming
Nothing
off.
wrong with the flat brim.
I felt like I was coming off differently than how I wanted to present myself. Yeah, nothing wrong with the
How
flat
do you
brim.
want to present yourself?
Well, I think me as a person and my comedy is like, there's a little bit of, there's silliness, self-deprecation, kind of like, hey, I'm making fun of myself and just being silly. But I felt like that
A
hat.
guy who wears a hat doesn't do that.
Well, no, it wasn't that. It was honestly, I was not in a good mental place, so I was also coming off kind of weird
Just
as
not
well.
feeling good about yourself.
Yeah, so I wasn't as silly and self-deprecating as I typically am. So I just felt like I was like coming off not how I wanted to.
Sure.
And yeah, so I was overthinking it for sure. But I haven't worn the hat on stage in a bit. Nothing against it. I just was like,
well.
I think the flat brim. I don't know if I can pull off.
So it
the
really
flat
wasn't
brim.
the hat specifically. It was
Not
a
at all.
lot of other things.
It was a lot of
that
things,
you just
yeah.
happen to have a hat on top of.
Just happened to happen during the hat.
So, but
time
you're really
frame.
making the hat seem like it was.
Well, I don't know if I can pull off.
You're putting a lot in the hat.
Well, same with the boots. I think there's a lot of things I can't pull off.
Well, because I would always try and up my fashion
Mhm.
game, or with my style, and the only thing I'd never really looked at was my shoes. Because
Okay.
nice shoes are expensive. I
Right.
feel like, and I mean, you don't have to get fucking Italian loafers or anything like that. Although I am looking for a nice loafer, because they're in right now.
Oh yeah, they're coming back.
Yeah. It's popular with
Okay.
the influencers.
I'm
I
out of
follow on
the
Instagram.
loafer game, I guess.
Yeah, well, that might be a good transition for you.
Yeah.
It's a comfortable shoe.
New
It's
Balance to
kinda
loafers.
yeah, I mean, well, you don't have to wear them everywhere.
Okay.
It's just nice when you want to go on a date or something, or you want to, I don't know, go out and feel nice with what you're wearing.
Feel
Anyway,
a little fancy. Yeah.
yeah, you don't always have. I mean, yeah. No, I feel like you're like this. You have to wear this every day. You have to get the max out of.
That's my mindset
and
with
these
shoes.
things can
It's
last
like,
you
what
your
can
whole
I
life.
wear?
Like if you get $1,000 hat, you're gonna die with that hat. I mean,
Yeah.
that hat's not going anywhere. I mean, unless you're doing like really, really hard work in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's also meant to last. So anyway,
Right.
but shoes were the last thing that I invested in. And then I got really into shoes.
Okay.
So
I had a
and
short
not
period.
Jordans. I mean, like that sporty look isn't that. What do they call that? Urban look isn't what I'm going.
Doesn't
for.
fit. Yeah. Yeah. I had a brief stint with shoes, but that was also while I was at Dick's, where we got I got paid $8 an hour,
Did you
and
get commission on the shoes?
no commission,
Damn.
just $8 an hour, and the only perk of working there was like you got a little extra discount on some of these brands. So I started a small shoe collection because shoes were like 75% off.
That's a great deal.
So I probably only bought like 3 pairs of shoes. So it was a pretty small collection, but that's a lot more than one, I guess.
Sure. So how'd you get fired?
Got fired.
Miscommunication, you're saying?
Yeah. So it was it was funny because it was totally silly. But what happened was so these discounts that I was just mentioning, you could get them a couple different ways. There was like a store discount where everybody just got 25% off at the store anyways. Then there was a website that you could go to. I think it was called like 3.5.com. And you'd like log in as an employee. And then if you took training for certain brands, like Merrill, like
Merrill is
Nike,
what? Okay.
Adidas, whatever shoe brand, or it could be not shoe brand, anything in the store, honestly. If you took this training session that would be like 45 minutes to an hour and passed this test, it basically gave you knowledge to be able to sell that brand more. So then they would extend a discount that usually was in between 40 to 75% off. So I would do that some to get discounts, but also occasionally stores or brands would just send Dick's a promotion. And they would put that in the back.
Like how you had to pause. Sometimes they just send Dick's
Dick's
a promotion.
promotions. But they would print them out and put them in like the employee room. And it would just be like printed out paper, like 50% off for whatever product during this week. So that was common. That would happen all the time. And that's exactly what happened. At one point, there's this brand called earbuds, which was like headphones that kind of twisted in and were good for running so it doesn't jostle out. And they were $30. The promotion was 50% off. So I bought a pair with the little thing in the back. You just got a sheet, printed out, 50% off, took it to the front, got them for $15. I was living with my parents at that point. I went home. My dad was like, hey, I'd love a pair as well. So I was like, cool, no problem. I'll get another one tomorrow. Went and got another one the next day. And then, thought nothing of it.
Yeah.
Basically, fast forward a month later, I get called into the office, and the loss prevention, like, regional manager was on the phone. And he's, like, sweet-talking me. He's talking all nice. And genuinely, I thought he was going to, like, congratulate or, like, thank me. Because a couple days before that, myself and a couple other employees had stopped someone from stealing a pair of shoes. Which in retail, you ever worked retail?
Yeah, I worked at a Safeway when I was really young.
What was their loss
You
prevention?
don't stop them.
Exactly.
You let them go.
So-
And once a week there was, or maybe once or twice a week, there was like a person who was there to stop them specifically or like to look out for it, but you weren't just supposed to let them go.
What did they tell you? They just said let them go, or did
let
they
them go,
say
don't say anything, then
don't-
tell the manager.
Okay. Yeah, for us, it was the only thing that you could do was kill them with customer service. So you just like, hey, like if you see somebody steal, you just go, hey, how can I help? You try to basically make them uncomfortable with customer service to hopefully not steal, but you can't say, I saw you steal. You can't,
But they still want you to be kind of like proactive in a way.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is hilarious because it's like,
Yeah, they're like,
$8 an hour. You guys, people
them
are
with
stealing a lot. You need
kindness.
to be more customer service. You're like, okay, I don't know what you want me to
Yeah.
do. But basically, a guy, he came back. I was in the shoe section. It was very obvious. He came back and he like shouted for me to go get a pair of shoes in the back. And then I knew based on his demeanor and everything, he was just like nonchalant. Was like, yeah, go get me like a couple pairs of this. And I was like, he's probably making me go to the back to then steal because we had some on display out in the front that they could, snag. And that's what he did. So I went back real quick and then I came back out, saw that he was making a beeline for the front door. We had little radios, like we were important, little retail, $8 an hour. I'm like, hey, he's coming to the front. And so three of us converged on him to, kill him with customer service. He ended up dropping the shoes and stormed out. And I remember when he walked out, the way he looked back and made eye contact, and I was like, this guy's going to come back and kill me for sure. I was like, I'm dying because of this Nike whatever shoes that just came out. But that was like 3 days before. So I thought this guy genuinely was calling to be like, hey, thank you for, working and caring. That was not the case. He buttered me up for like 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden he just goes, have you ever seen anybody steal anything from the store, any employees? And I was like, I don't think so. And then he goes, have you ever stolen anything from the company? And I go, no. And then he goes, I'm going to ask you one more time, Ben. And in my mind, I was like, what is like, it all hit me there. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
Terrible feeling. It has to feel bad.
And genuinely, I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him that. And he goes, how about those earbuds you bought a month ago? And I was like, yeah, I bought them.
Purchased them, yeah.
And basically, long story short, he said in the fine print of the little promotion, it was like one per employee. And I bought two.
Yeah.
And again, they were $30, 50% off. Yeah. I stole, quote unquote, $15 from the company. I was like, I'll pay it back. I mean, I had no, and they fired me.
You offered to be like, hey, I can pay the full price on these. Like,
yeah.
And they're just like, no, we're We're done. They fired you over the phone. They had some guy call you and fire
Well,
you.
no, what they did is they made me write down, which I should have. Looking back, I was young,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
looking back, I
They
should
tell you.
have not. He kind of like coerced me into writing like a confession to be like, I took from the company, Ben Dailey.
Yeah, because you're like, you don't think you're gonna get fired. You're
Yeah.
just like, okay, we'll move on from this.
Literally, my manager was like, I think things will be fine. I don't, this guy is the regional loss prevention. His job, in order to like have a job, he has to find people like me, and fire them in order to justify him getting this big money. But it was funny because like the store manager called me the next day and was like, we have to fire you. But he was like, I'm so sorry. I will give you a reference if you need it. It was the weirdest. You're like, okay, I'm getting fired, but the manager is going to give me a reference. But anyway, it is so stupid too, because people
it's
all the
bullshit.
time would have their friends come in and they would walk their friends' items up, use their employee discount to get 25% off for their friend.
Yeah.
Which it's like, so that's fine, but I accidentally took.
Yeah, it's bullshit. Yeah,
But-
dude, corporate shit sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I boycotted
them.
Dick's for a while, but I don't care. I'm over it. I've fortunately got a better job than $8 an hour. So
Yeah,
it's,
that's good. You really, best revenge is life well lived,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
yeah,
Yeah. Although it would have felt good to murder that guy, huh?
yeah. Well, that that's one
Wow,
way to look
man.
at
Did you-
it.
No, yeah. I mean, it's yeah, that kind of like petty bullshit. When,
Yeah.
like, corporate's the worst.
Yeah, that's why it is funny, and it's nice being at the point where I'm at in my career and my life to just understand things for what they are
Yeah.
and not
more
get too worked
perspective
up.
on that.
Yeah,
I
where
mean,
you're just like, if you want to be dumb like that, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah, my last job I ended up quitting because they, were trying to write me up on some bullshit too. I wish I would have just not played their game at all,
Yeah.
because I was just like, okay, whatever. Yeah, you could say from a certain point of view, you could say like this is this. So yeah, but
Yeah.
that's like not what I was trying to do or whatever. But it's just bullshit. Yeah, I'm trying to let it go, but it fucks with me.
Yeah. There's no better revenge also than being in a position where a company's treating you poorly and going, I'll just leave right now, and actually doing it,
Yeah,
which can be tough,
yeah. When you need money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm got to buy more shoes.
I ended up doing that with one of my couple jobs ago where
Buying
it was
shoes?
just a totally horrible situation, and they kept, it was so beyond bad. And like a week before I actually said, well, I'll just leave. Here's my 2 weeks. The boss had flown in from the UK. He came, so it was a UK based company. There's like 5 people out here in Golden, and the guy came unannounced from the UK. He fired the manager. He fired the assistant manager. And then he's just like throwing all this extra stuff on us. And at one point, to give a little context, a year before that, the company had been in shambles, and like a couple people who hadn't quit were holding it together, myself included. And at one point, I was in inside sales. I had to work in the warehouse for 6 months straight. Wasn't able to do sales because they fired the warehouse person. They refused to get a temp. When they got a temp, he was shipping everything wrong, so I had to be back there anyways. And look, I'm happy to do whatever work. I'm not like, oh, I won't help out with the company. But also, 6 months
I mean, there's a certain point where it's,
is way too long. And also, there was no thank you. There was no extra money. I was losing money, in fact, from not being able to do my sales jobs with potential commission there. And so, no acknowledgement of like, hey, we kind of put you through a tough spot. Thank you for your help, whatever. And so, at one point, when the UK boss came over, the new warehouse guy, he was out sick, and I was working from home at that point. I basically told them after that 6-month stint in the warehouse, I was like, I'm working from home or I'm quitting. Like, and I'm fine leaving. So they allowed me to work from home. Anyways, this guy goes, hey, can you come in to help in the warehouse? Like, we're in a pinch, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, no, thank you. And the look on his face. Anyway, I mean, that might sound bad if
No,
I
it
didn't
has to
provide
feel
the full context,
fuck
but
that.
it was truly a situation where it was like, no, dude, I'm not coming in again. Literally, you abused me for 6 months.
yeah. And they're like, no, you should let us do that more.
Yeah. And so then I found out that my coworker was making like 20 grand more than me. And I'd been working there for 2.5 years, same position. She was a temp, just started full time. And good for her, by the way. We were on good terms. Nothing against that. But with that information, I was like, well, I'm going to go to the boss and say, I would like more money. I'm working multiple positions now, holding this company together. And I said, hey, can we talk about salary? And he goes, no, I'm too busy. And I just said, all right, well, here's my 2 weeks.
And you even gave him 2 weeks, which is very nice.
Yeah, which is funny. They didn't fire me before the 2 weeks because...
What did he say? I'll give you a reference? Because, they have to do that.
No, this guy had too much pride. He was too stubborn, too much pride. It was unbelievable that they didn't try to keep me because they were in such... I mean, it was one of those positions very few times in my life where you go, I have so much leverage.
Yeah.
Like, it's an unbelievable amount of leverage. If there's ever a time to try to use that leverage, it's right now.
And they're just like, yeah, we got to cut this guy loose. Probably because you had so much leverage. They're like, let's let him go anyway.
Yeah. Well, this guy had too much pride also.
Okay.
Like,
The boss guy.
because he had shut me
is like
down.
a
I had
small
just
company?
asked him about, hey, can we talk about salary? And he was like, no.
Yeah, I'm too
And
busy.
so for me to say, all right, then I'm leaving, he had too much pride to be like, oh, shoot, maybe I should have taken 10 minutes to talk about pay.
Yeah, it's like a bad boss.
Yeah. Because even if it's like the answer's no, or even if the answer is, hey, we'll try to work you up to a certain point in a month or two.
Yeah.
Then at least that's a conversation. But he was like, no conversation. And I was like, all right. See you later.
Fuck that guy. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Work sucks, bro.
Yeah.
Work sucks. I hear you. I have a hard time sometimes with like being told what to do. Do you feel that at all?
I can be very defiant.
Me too. Yeah.
It's a flaw for sure. It's definitely something that I noticed. It was very much in my childhood, but it heads with my dad a lot, and very defiant.
You could have said no. I'm not going to get you those earbuds, Dad.
Yeah.
Out of principle.
Yeah. To get back. No, I have a good relationship with my dad, but it was very much, I was very much the black sheep. I would act out a lot. Like a lot of stuff looking back, it makes sense getting into comedy.
Child? Middle child.
Second out of 4.
Middle child.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're trying to get attention, you feel like.
Yeah. Always was trying to get attention. Was always kind of shut down. It was a strict conservative household. It was kind of, hey, no, do your homework, read, whatever. And I was like, I can't focus. I have ADD.
Where are you from?
From Virginia.
Virginia.
Yeah. So it was, I definitely see that now in work as well. Not to a point of like being that bad, but I don't handle people's crap anymore.
If I don't feel appreciated and I know you're making me do some bullshit, like that's a hard mix for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is funny because I'm not a confrontational person at all.
Seems like you might be.
But I've gotten more and more, I think, comfortable with just being like, no, I can't.
I would say I'm not great with confrontation either, so I let myself get pushed to a point where I'm like, this has to change. Like, this needs to be a change. I need to stand up for myself, and then I might overcorrect in certain situations.
100% same for me.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. I wish I was better at just nipping stuff in the bud as it happens in a natural way versus holding it in.
Yeah.
And then when it comes out, it's like this awkward fight thing where you're like, oh, I made this weird.
Yeah, because you're feeling hyped up. You're like, I need to defend myself, blah, blah, blah.
You're like, I've rehearsed this in the shower so many times. And then it happens and you're like, oh,
got it over it in my head a billion times and it just makes me madder.
Yeah.
And then when I get emotional, I get teared up.
Yeah.
Does that happen to you? So it's just like this terrible confluence of events. Like I'm like getting watery eyed, trying to like, I'm defending myself, but like I want to still seem like, I'm not being irrational or whatever.
I shut down when I get real confrontational. I get I rage
like a robot.
And I get like, I shut down. I have to a couple times.
Shutting down.
What's that?
You're raging, but you're shut down?
Well, like I when it's like this confrontation, I don't know, I shut down and just let them go and get very angry. And I don't know how to explain it. Like, I haven't teared up much, but I have, that has happened before.
Yeah.
I had a friend that stole kind of stole a girlfriend.
Oh.
And like the first girl I ever kind of dated in high school,
Yeah.
hung
it's a rough
out,
one.
did the classic high school thing where you go, hey man, hey best friend, do you want to go hang out with this girl that I'm hanging out with? Because you're like, why not hang out with my best friend and kind of my girlfriend at the same time? It's the best of
Kind
both
of your
worlds.
girlfriend?
Well, that was, I mean, we were like talking as high schoolers
Okay.
would
Were
say.
you getting physical?
No, yeah, that's
Okay.
I was very sheltered.
No, I hear you.
So
yeah. I mean, that's
we were
a
hanging
hard
out,
bridge to cross.
but we never, nothing physical. But he ended up stealing her from me, and it was one of those situations where she had mentioned like, "Oh, I think I have some feelings for him," and I had talked to him, and I said, "Hey, man, like, friend to
Back off.
friend,
Okay.
please don't." And he was like, "Yeah, no problem."
Okay.
And then he did.
Uh,
And so
and were
a
they getting physical?
conversation, I think so. Yeah, he was more advanced.
We're all
in,
trying to get
in that
physical,
department.
Yeah.
But there was a conversation where we were on the phone because we used to golf all the time together. We were like best friends, hung
High
out
school.
every day. High school,
Golfing.
would golf every day together, like especially
Every day
during
golfing.
during the summer.
Is that like a Virginia thing?
That was just
What you were into.
Yeah,
That was your shoes.
yeah.
That was your cowboy hat.
A lot of golf.
Yeah, would you put your nose up to somebody who spent a bunch of money on a putter? You'd be like, wow, that is a ridiculous amount to pay for a driver.
Yes and no. I'll say this. I think a lot of people think that because golf is very expensive, but when I was under 18, they had a junior price membership, $300 for the year, and we would play like every day. So honestly, the
for
course,
like a membership to the course.
yeah. So
Okay.
literally $300 is all we paid, and then we
But
played
you had
like
to have your own clubs?
yeah. So I bought clubs. I had I did save up and buy some clubs, but I got some used clubs, a couple new clubs.
Yeah. Sorry, that was more about me than it is about you.
No,
Keep going with
you're
your
right though.
story.
That's a
You
good
guys
point
would,
as far as if you're investing in stuff that you like, some stuff is expensive. Nowadays, dude, golf clubs, I mean, a driver's like $700. I look at that and I'm like, I would love to get new clubs, but there's no way I can justify.
What's wrong with the ones you got?
Well, they're just 20 years old.
And it wears on them, or you could.
Yeah,
the technology goes so
improves, and also with the irons, like they have grooves in them,
far. Oh,
and when you
okay.
play with them a lot, the
Dang,
grooves start
interesting.
to fade, and then you get less spin, and it's
A lot of comics like to play golf. Do you go with those guys?
Yeah,
Nick
I'll play with the
Dean,
group.
Brad Galley.
yeah, good group of guys.
I have a pair of clubs I got way back in the day at a Target.
Yeah,
haven't used them in years.
no.
Yeah, squirrels have eaten through most of the covers on them.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
I thought you were gonna say squirrels have eaten through most of the clubs. I was gonna say it's pretty intense.
they're
squirrels.
good. Yeah, so
Just
you
eating
wanted
metal.
the drivers that are made out of Wakandan metal,
Yeah, I don't even know the technology nowadays, but there's a bunch of it,
adamantium,
and
vibranium.
you can spend. I mean, a new driver is probably $700. A new set of good irons is $500 to $1,000. Each wedge, which you probably have 2 or 3 in a set, is $100+. A 5-wood, 3-wood, $400
What
each.
brand? What is like the best brand here?
PXG is probably the most expensive, and it's a newer brand. But if we take a look here, yeah,
$849.
used.
Oh, is that used? Or is it? Oh yeah, used.
Wow, at the low price of $849 for a used set of clubs.
$3,799 right there. Full
Yeah.
bag.
Yeah, so that's the full bag.
That's
but
the full bag, baby.
It's so expensive.
All right. Sorry, we're getting off your story though. He steals your girl. You're like, hey, don't do this.
Steals my girl.
How does that conversation go though? Like,
well,
hey, bud.
So what happened was
He said that.
he said he wouldn't pursue it. I had the conversation with him. I was like, hey, man to man. Maybe you could say I'm in the wrong for this, but the context is it's the first girl that I'm kind of talking to in high school, and I brought him to hang out with her, and it was kind of one of those things of like, hey, man, don't, there's a million other girls.
Don't fuck me on this.
Yeah. And he said, sure, no problem. But then I think I talked to her later, and she's like, we've been dating. And so I found out, and we used to golf all the time. So I was at another friend's house. We were playing video games, and I remember having a call in his room where he was like so nonchalant about it. Like I talked to him, he goes, "Hey man, we're gonna be at the course all the time. We're gonna play together. Don't worry. Like, sure, I'm dating her, but we're still best friends." And I was literally like, "I will fight you on the golf course." And I was like, I was getting emotional, and that was one of the few times I can remember like being so emotional about it, kind of tearing up. And it was so awkward because my other friend, who I was at his house playing video games, his mom came in to be like, "Dinner's ready" or whatever, and I was like half crying, and I'm like, "Okay."
You're going through something, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah. But most of the time I
Did you
just
beat
shut
him up?
down. No
You just
fight.
stopped
They broke
going
up a
again?
couple months later, and then all was
Yeah,
well. It
nothing
was one of
lasts.
those.
You guys became friends again.
Yeah, it was one of those
Oh,
silly,
you
just,
let
you
it
know, you go
go.
through the
You
ups
let
and
it
downs.
go.
Yeah. Mariana, that was her name. Costa Rican. She started lifting weights
Costa
later,
Rican.
and I think
Oh,
taking
nice.
steroids, and looked a little bit different than
Hey, man, I think chicks who lift are hot.
on steroids.
I mean, if
Well,
you
at
do
what
it tastefully.
At what point does it go from like tone and hot to too much for you?
I mean, once you're like bodybuilder status, like if you're competing,
She was.
well, that's just not an aesthetic I'm into. I appreciate the work that went into that. But I'm thinking like a. Did you ever watch this show called The Titan Games with it was like The Rock's like American Gladiator show kind of.
Okay, no, I don't think so. I remember American Gladiator. That used to be. You watch that documentary on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
I haven't
watched
seen it either, but I've seen the preview.
But yeah, there's one girl who won it. Her name's Dee Spiegel, and I think she's very attractive.
That's her right there?
Yeah, I mean they're buff. These are buff chicks, buff
Okay.
people.
I would say that's buff, but not on steroids.
I mean, I don't know. She's from Colorado.
Like she looks like she's like
I
a
don't know, man.
avid
She's pretty
member
big.
of a climbing gym.
She
Kind of that
she does
body.
like CrossFit stuff. Yeah. I mean, and she's also just like big. She's a big person.
Yeah.
So
Is that
you could
your
just put a
is
lot
that
of,
your
lot of muscle
ideal
on.
physique, or you're just saying that's one of many that you're attracted
Yeah,
to?
I'm attracted to a lot of different things. But,
Okay.
I was just thinking like chicks who lift. Like
She
I follow her
would.
on Instagram, and she has like this thing. Well, I think her brand's like chicks who or girls who eat. But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
she's pretty
there's
ripped.
times where, a little buffer than others, but
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not.
it's a good body. It's a lot of muscle definition.
Oh, yeah.
Probably a little more than I would.
Would you
I
feel
would be
threatened by
into.
that?
I mean, I think most people should feel threatened. She's pretty.
She's
She's
not
pretty.
threatening you.
No, I mean, she looks very
threatened.
physically able to handle herself
Oh,
if
yeah.
something came up.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna have to cut this part out. We're just like, look at this chick's body.
No, she's very attractive. That's
Yeah.
women are beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. But yeah, I mean, I'm into that for sure. Yeah, I know
Are you
that.
into a certain hair color? Do you have
I
a?
like brunettes. Well, I've dated a lot of redheads.
Okay.
Actually,
Was that
It's
by
just kinda-
coincidence,
well,
or did you?
I was always attracted to them more. I don't know. There was an initial attraction, and then I just found out through experience that redheads are interested in me. So
Yeah.
so I don't know what it was.
So you're like,
But yeah, a lot of redheads, brunettes. I didn't think I've ever dated a blonde.
no blondes.
It just never worked out.
I guess I'm sure there's plenty of blondes out here, but it feels like less blondes. And when I was in high school, it felt like blonde. I don't know if it was the time period or the age range, but blonde seemed to be way more in. I don't know if maybe my
More
perception
like in
was
earlier 2000s, people were bleaching their hair. A lot
yeah,
more.
it was probably just the
You ever
fad.
do frosted tips?
I never did. Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did. Yeah, I'm very vain about my hair.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you? I assume it wasn't
Constantly.
long hair at that point. It was
No,
short.
I did. I had a stint through high school that was long, but
Okay. Any other fads you followed?
I mean, all of them.
All of them?
I mean, it's mostly diet fads now, but
Okay. What diet fad are you on?
I'm fasting right now.
Fasting.
Intermittent fasting at the
Okay.
moment.
What's that look like window wise? What's your time frame?
Most of the week I do a 16-8 split, so 16 fasting and then 8-hour feeding window.
Do 12 to 8?
I do,
something around there.
It's like 2 to 10.
2 to 10? Okay.
Yeah, I work in the evening, so
Okay, so you're up
it's
a
just
little bit
easier
later.
for me. Yeah,
I do the
And
same thing. I'm big I guess I don't advocate it a ton, but for me, I have coffee in the morning and then I'll eat lunch and have dinner. I'll do the 2 meals, kind of intermittent fasting as well. And I'll fast occasionally, like a couple times a year. And it's usually when I've been kind of cheating or bad with my diet as a way to reset. I'll fast for 2 or 3 days
Yeah, yeah.
to just reset, I think.
Yeah, last month I've been doing like a 36-hour fast every once a week.
Yeah.
But
Once
yeah,
a week. Wow.
yeah. Yeah, it's usually after my cheat day. So
Okay.
like I'll probably eat at 10 today, or I mean start eating, stop eating at 10 today, and I'll probably eat some shit, and then tomorrow I won't eat till Tuesday morning.
And what's that look like for you as far as you just sit around and kind of keep it?
I work, I'm working. I try
Yeah.
to keep busy because if I'm like just here editing or whatever, I'll want to eat.
Eat.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but I work on Mondays, so
Do you feel? I feel like around 36 hours is when get over the cravings and kind of, as cliche as it sounds, feel kind of zen and centered for from 36 hours to 48 hours.
I haven't
And
done a 48-hour one in a while. Just the pre-COVID, I was doing more fasting, but during COVID, I got into lifting, and
mm-hmm.
I was trying to get more gain. So I was constantly, just trying
Bulking.
to, just
Yeah.
trying to eat to, maintain gain body muscle mass. I mean, and
Yeah.
so, and I'm still getting pretty much all the protein I need now, just within that window.
What's your
Uh,
go-to bulking food? Do you have
I mean,
certain proteins that?
I've been, I'll do a lot of meat,
Yeah.
chicken thighs, and I've been doing a lot of deli roast beef,
Okay.
just because it's easy to take in my lunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, eggs constantly. I mean, at least 5 eggs a day.
Yeah. Boiled, scrambled.
When I'm going to work, I'll hard boil them.
Okay.
And then if I'm making them in the morning, which I haven't been, because of the fasting window, but I like a fried egg.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you like it sunny side up?
Yeah, closer to over hard because when I had my beard and my mustache, it was just like yolk would get in there
Oh,
pretty
gotcha.
easily. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Interesting.
yeah, I got used to over hard.
Yeah, I've grown to like a little undercooked versus overcooked.
Interesting. My wife likes them a little runny,
Yeah.
which I don't like.
I like that, if especially if you have some bread to kind of dip it in,
Chop
or
it
if
up.
you have
Yeah,
some
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I'm
potatoes.
not doing bread. I'm trying not to do
Ah,
carbs and stuff. So
same here. I'm on a
you seem
pretty.
fine. You seem fine. Yeah. What is it you were talking about on your podcast? Having some like anxiety, things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I was
What's wrong?
feeling
What's going on? Why is this
uh
happening to you?
so I feel like I keep saying long story short and then saying the long story, but
That's the name of this episode. Long
yeah,
story short.
long story short but not short. About 12 years ago I got Lyme disease and went through a very difficult period for a couple years, which ultimately, in order to heal myself, I was on a bunch of antibiotics, a bunch of different medications that off and on were making me feel dead inside and just not ultimately solving the problem. So what ended up solving the problem was just having a very strict diet and avoiding certain foods, mostly sugar and gluten. Um, and up until about 2 years ago, I had been very vigilant. I cheat here and there,
Constant vigilance.
but I had, for the most part, like dessert. There were certain things that were just off the table. And over the last 2 years, especially with comedy and being out and like not having had dinner and it's super late and you're like, well, across the
There's
street's
a
Dave.
pizza place right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. A lot of that sort of Ben and Jerry's was kind of getting into a routine of like
Dude.
once a week
Yeah.
having
Dude,
that.
that's kind of one of the things that we were talking about. When I do the fast, I haven't been going out. Because if I'm going to fucking Broadway, there's like 2 pizza places, a donut shop, a cookie shop.
Oh,
I'm just like, I got it.
it's
I
so easy to
gotta.
fast and then cheat like so much worse than you would have if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't even do
'Cause,
the
yeah,
fast.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have been avoiding like Irish Rover and things like that.
Okay.
Which isn't
Gotcha.
great for my comedy, but I think overall for my health, it's better.
Yeah. You got to balance. You got to find out what a good
So
balance
you've
is.
been getting a little looser on your strict routine, and that you feel like that's been good.
Yeah. Yeah. And a big part of the symptoms 12 years ago was like, I mean, very,
That's when you got Lyme disease.
yeah. So
Can I ask you
anxiety
how? Got like a
from a
tick or
tick.
something? Oh
Yeah.
shit, dude.
Yeah.
That's like the horror story. That's what they tell you about.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. And it affects everybody differently. And honestly, it's one of those topics that doctors and studies, like there's not a lot out there. There's a lot of differing
Yeah, Lyme disease
opinions.
is like the rare, it's like the
Yeah.
crazy one that they check it last, right? Did that happen to you? Like
Yeah,
you go
well,
through all these tests?
they checked it early on because I asked them to,
Oh,
because I
okay.
was doing a bunch of, I'm just sitting at home, like, in this constant terror of
12
this.
years ago, you're like late teens?
I was, so I'm 35.
Oh, okay.
12 years ago, so it was more 13 years ago, I was 22. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was in such a bad mental and physical state. Like, I had to quit my job. Like, I was not living a real life.
The Dix one?
Yeah, well, I worked that kind of during when I was taking medication for Lyme. So before that, I think Dix I was like 24, but I was still struggling through it during that period. But yeah, just a bunch of horrible mental, like, states,
Fog,
and
not
yeah,
feeling
brain fog.
good.
I literally couldn't have a conversation more than basic stuff.
Yeah.
Um, it was very, very weird, and it was honestly it was a terrible time, and
Yeah,
it's
it
kind of
sounds
weird to
really bad.
even it's kind of even weird to talk about, because it was such a different mental state that it almost feels like it wasn't real,
Yeah. It's like
where
a
you're like,
different happened to a different person kind of.
yeah.
Yeah.
But all that happened then, and with diet over a couple year period, I kind of got my immune system and everything back on track.
What does Lyme do to just for
So it can do so many different things. That's why it's so hard to diagnose, because there's so many different, like, strands of bacteria or whatever they call it in these ticks, and it affects everybody differently. Honestly, it could be joint pain, it could be extreme depression, it could be people are bedridden. Uh, I was told that I might have lupus. I was told that I might have Sjorgen syndrome. It's like a syndrome where you don't. I'm probably saying it wrong, but
I sp-
it's a saliva gland autoimmune disease. Autoimmune. Let's see. Yeah. Sh- sh- Sjogren's. I don't know how to say that.
Sjogren's syndrome.
Sjogren's.
Yeah.
So I missed it, but I think yeah.
You're close.
So all these, like,
Sjogren's
lupus.
syndrome.
Does that show up on the pod?
Oh yeah.
That people
yeah,
can
you
hear?
hear
Okay.
it, yeah.
So I don't look as stupid trying to pronounce that. But yeah, they were telling me all these, it could be this, it could be that. I was told that I have Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune disease against my thyroid, where my body attacks the thyroid.
That has
And
to be a terrible time. Just
yeah,
to be like, my body is, not functioning right. Like, what do I do? I don't know what happened.
and I knew it was one of those things where, like, your body, and kind of what your norm
Hopefully.
is.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
somewhat your body.
I think some people are more oblivious to like
For sure.
yeah.
For
But
sure.
you
But you're
could
at
feel
least
something or
oblivious, and you know what that norm is. Maybe you're
Okay.
oblivious, but you're like, this is what I generally
something.
feel
Yeah.
like.
Something's off. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when something changes, you're like, something's off from the norm. And it changed almost overnight, and it for 2 years was just like terror. And so yeah, long story short, did all the long story long, did all the diet stuff to eventually get back to a good place. And
Yeah.
then
Where did the doctor tell you to do this, or like how did you? Were you doing your
I
own
went
research?
to so many different doctors that just told me, you're fine, it's in your head, here's a pill.
It's in your head.
You're fine, it's in your head, here's a pill.
Could you sue those guys?
Dude, I lost all respect for doctors. I respect people
What
who.
pill were they giving you?
Here's antidepressant, here's anti-anxiety. I was given thyroid medication to deal with my.
So it wasn't like a physical thing they could tell, like there's something like his bones are atrophied at so much, there has to be something wrong. They're
No,
just
well,
like,
that's the thing too. During that period, and I don't want to do too much TMI, but I was not able to go to the bathroom.
okay.
Number 2,
Yeah. Thank
for
you.
months. And people go, "There's no way, dude. What happened?" I'm not kidding you. For months.
You didn't shit for months.
Like, maybe once a week there'd be like,
It's a movement.
and
Of the
again,
bowels.
TMI, but like a
Dude,
couple
we just gotta know the
rabbit
facts. Pellets.
pellets. A
Okay.
couple. Like,
Okay.
not like, oh, I'm good now. Like, and so what happens with that, I'm trying not to give too much
No,
information,
you
but
know,
what
yeah.
happens if you don't get it out is it rots inside your body.
Uh-huh.
And you can die from that.
Sure, yeah.
Like, that's
yeah.
toxic. That's not good. And so I would go to the doctor and be like, I haven't gone in forever. And they're like, just eat some vegetables. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm trying to tell you, like, I need you to get
Take
this
it
out of my body. There was one point, it was so bad, I took X-Lax, still did not go to the bathroom. If you read the back of X-Lax, it's like, you will go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's paraphrasing, but it's like, have you ever taken X-Lax?
No.
You should go. Okay? It is like, it is,
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
yeah, but it didn't. I mean, it
Okay.
was that bad. And I was like, oh, dude, this is bad. And, but yeah, doctors are just like, it's in your head, you're whatever. And then so finally, after years of going to the doctor, I got endoscopy, CAT scan, colonoscopy. I did everything I could, and they're just like,
Did they
you're,
get the shit out with the colonoscopy?
by that point, yeah, I drank a gallon of basically X-Lax, and
And then it happened. That's what got it moving.
that wasn't the initial part. This was later on. This was, because I was looking into, is it celiac disease? This was way later after I had already taken some steps with diet and stuff to help alleviate some of those initial symptoms
What
before
was your diet before? Just kind of the average American diet?
My diet
Hamburgers
was
and-
not bad, but I wouldn't say it was the average American diet, but similar to the average American diet, I would have sweets.
Yeah.
And there was a point where I made a big diet change, but I cut out gluten, but not sugar. So I was still having a bunch of gluten-free cookies and
Yeah.
desserts and treats like that, and the
Yeah,
sugar is the
yeah.
biggest thing that would affect me. So I
The
was
Lyme disease kind of like living off the sugar, maybe.
exactly. So that's the thing, and this is something that like doctors and people will argue whether it is true or not. I can only speak from my experience. I think 100% it is just from my experience the truth. But if you don't take antibiotics and kill the Lyme disease right when it happens, like you get bit by a tick, you get a bullseye rash is like a sure sign of Lyme disease, which you would get right away. And yeah, bullseye Lyme disease.
Dude, this let Max listening to us because I just started putting in bull and it said bullseye Lyme disease.
Yeah, first yeah. So that happens, I think, if I remember correctly, in about 60% of Lyme disease cases. I never got that, or I never saw that. What I do remember is the summer after I graduated college, I got bit by a tick, and I got a swollen lymph node in my groin area, and I thought it was a hernia. So I went to the doctor, and he was like, "No, it's not a hernia." He was like, "Have you been bitten by a tick recently?" And I was like, "Yeah," and he
Oh.
goes, "Oh, it's probably from that." Fast forward a couple months is when or I don't know, maybe a month is when like everything just went bad.
Yeah.
And I didn't
Just
connect the
started
two.
feeling terrible, not shitting, that all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There was one night where it happened where I had like my first panic attack and like genuinely felt like out of body, like I felt unstable to the point where I was like, I might need somebody to check me in to like I don't feel
Hey, if you've never
safe.
experienced it, you don't know what's happening. And you're
Yeah.
like,
It
yeah,
was
scary.
It was very scary. But also, so that was before I didn't connect the dots to the lymph
you
node
wouldn't.
and
Yeah,
tick because I didn't think Lyme disease for
you wouldn't
maybe
know.
months or years after that. But I was bitten by thousands of ticks as a kid, growing up playing in the woods and stuff.
Okay.
Literally bitten by. It was just
So it wasn't it'd be like getting bit by a mosquito for me.
yeah.
You're
So
like, it happens all the time.
yeah, and it could have been Lyme disease from when I was a kid that was
But
laying
didn't,
dormant and then
resurface
kind
till
of came
now.
to fruition as far as symptoms later on. It could have been the tick from that summer that I just mentioned. But it was multiple years of back and forth, doctors telling me I'm crazy, until I finally went to a Lyme specific doctor. And this was like 2012. And they diagnosed me with Lyme. They did a bunch of like different tests versus the generic yes or no test,
Yeah,
which
on
is
a
not
piece of paper.
which is not very
Do you have
reliable.
Lyme disease? Yes or no?
Yeah. It's just like you don't, you're fine. It's in your head. But got diagnosed then and then went along this long path of like antibiotics and different medications that ultimately didn't work. So I realized like my last ditch effort was like I have to just eat healthy and hopefully this works. And it's very frustrating because I mean I'm talking about months and months and months to see the little gains. But when you've eaten poorly and destroyed the inside of your body for years,
Yeah, it takes time.
it makes sense that it takes a long time to get it back. But
Is that where you found fasting as well? Because they talk about, like 3 to 5 day fasts or whatever. It's like that's when your cells start regenerating and stuff like that. Like, and it gets rid of cancer cells and things like that.
Interesting. I
Have you
hadn't
read any books on this? How did you start?
No, so fasting,
I've read or I've listened to like 2 different books at least about
yeah.
fasting. Yeah, and they
I
talk
w-
about the longer fasts being like your cells start like eating the bad stuff basically,
Interesting.
and like
I mean, I've probably heard that. I have read a little bit, and a lot of it's just on my own experience of if I'm eating unhealthy,
you can
it's
feel it.
yeah, and you crave stuff. Like
Sure.
sugar,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
crave sugar, but if I fast for a day and a half, then you get beyond those cravings and kind of reset to where it's like, all right, now when I eat, I'm not like needing
Yeah. The
M&Ms after every
microbiome
meal.
is yeah.
And I've read enough to know that like fasting for a certain period of time is fine. I know a lot of people are like,
Yeah. Yeah.
fasting for 2 days, you're gonna die. It's like you can fast for
Yeah. You can fast for a long
2
time.
weeks.
Yeah.
It's not.
No one's recommending it.
Yeah, it's not
But
recommended, but
yeah. But I mean,
a
yeah,
couple days is
you
fine.
could do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but fast forward to a couple months ago. Over the last 2 years, I've cheated quite a bit and eaten. I have been eating poorly, and it hit a point where I had those feelings again
Yeah.
mentally
Damn.
of
It has
back
to
in the
be.
limes these days, and so I immediately said, I've got to get it together. Like, there's
This is just
no.
a couple months ago.
Yeah, this
Okay.
was 6, 7 weeks ago.
Yeah, because you've been hitting the road, you've been touring a little bit. I mean, you're
Yeah,
doing a lot in
yeah,
comedy, and it does not lend itself to the healthiest lifestyle. You think
yeah,
sleep is a big part of it as well?
yeah. Sleep, exercise, and diet, huge. Yeah, so I've really dedicated myself to focusing on that,
Yeah.
and I've seen changes on stage. I didn't connect the dots until after I had that episode where I was not feeling well. Uh, that over the last year, I've felt not as in command on stage as I was feeling before that. So it's like I've gotten the reps in. I felt like I got to a certain point where I'm feeling comfortable, and now I'm
Denver
starting
will
to.
just do that to
Yeah.
you.
Well, yeah, you'll have your ups and downs
Yeah.
naturally anyways, but I felt less in control and fewer and far between where I was like zinging and zanging, where you're like in the pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I not
In your
feeling as
flow state.
comfortable? Um, and then it all connected when I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was more anxious taking that anxiety on stage, and I just didn't realize until I had that kind of rock bottom moment to be like, okay, you got to get it together. And over these last couple months, since I've really committed to eating healthy and exercising and just being healthy in general, I've seen on stage just feeling loose, natural in the moment, which is,
Loose bowels on stage,
which,
always good.
loose bowels. Yeah. That's my closer.
Yeah, you're like, I can take a shit
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, where you said like you stopped trusting doctors, that's really interesting. I mean, like, Western medicine isn't always the best. I mean, it works for a lot of people, it helps a lot of people, but it's also not meant. I don't think it's very focused on fixing problems from the root,
Yeah.
of the source. It's more about just mitigating side effects and things that once
100%.
it's already happened.
I feel bad. I don't even feel bad about saying it.
Why should
I
you?
mean it 100%.
You've
But
gone through the gauntlet.
there are certainly things that doctors can help people with.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to take that away. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
just do a blanket
Yeah.
statement. But if you are feeling poorly, you have to be your biggest advocate. Like
because no one else is gonna
everybody,
stand up for
including
it.
myself in that moment 13 years ago, you want a doctor to just tell you what to do to make you better.
Yeah, pretty much.
But that's hardly ever the case. If you break your arm, yeah, a doctor will
put it
fix
in a
it, put it in a
cast.
cast.
Yeah.
That is something that you go, okay, 100% trust
Sure.
in this person. I can't advocate for my broken arm to heal itself,
Yeah.
But most things that doctors are doing, whether it's mental problems, physical problems, not so much physical problems, but a lot of physical problems can come from inflammation due to things that you're doing. They'll throw pills or suggestions to you that are putting a band-aid on things rather than, like you said, addressing the root cause. And I think we should be doing better, and I wish we were doing better as a society, addressing root causes and talking about,
No,
like
there's
when
no
it comes
money
to
in
mental
that.
health. Again, I don't want to say this is a blanket statement because there are
There's
certainly
a blanket
things.
behind you if you want to use
Yeah,
that other side.
there's certainly things that uh, no matter how healthy you eat, how much exercise and sleep you get,
Yeah, there's certain
traumas and
things
stuff
that's
that
yeah.
you can't. That's not going to heal some mental scars.
Yeah.
But a lot of mental things kids' anxiety, depression. A lot of these things, maybe not fully get rid of, but certainly alleviate to a certain extent by just being healthier in general.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not really talked about all that much in the mainstream, and it's unfortunate because obviously
Yeah,
it's a
we all just
big
want a pill.
issue. Yeah, we all just want,
You
hey,
drink
just
it all?
fix me. A little bit over the last couple months with the health stuff. I
No,
haven't.
but yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, alcohol's always like the first thing I'm like, I gotta fucking. Not that it's ever been a huge problem, but there have been times in my life where I've been drinking more than others, and it's like, it's always like the red flag to me, especially with like job stuff. I'm like, oh, there's something going on. It's usually because I dislike my job
Yeah.
and I'm unhappy with that I'm trying to like get out of my state and all things
Yeah.
like that. But
What's your drink of choice?
I mean, I like sweet stuff, so whiskey, ginger, whiskey. I was doing a horse feather for a long time, which is just a whiskey ginger with a little bit of bitters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah, I go the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Vodka sodas, things like that, less calories.
Yeah.
But when I was young, I mean, whiskey, Coke, come on.
Yeah.
And I know soda's bad for you, but it had alcohol in it, so who
Yeah.
cares?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's also, I use it as an excuse to be like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I had a couple of drinks, so fuck it. I'm going to have some pizza or
Yeah.
whatever,
So easy to cheat
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, I feel bad that I was giving you shit about your clothes when you're like, I'm dying.
No, I mean, honestly, last time we talked about the clothes and stuff was before, and nothing. I'm fine with people
yeah,
making fun. That's what we're doing. We're comics.
yeah, I guess, yeah. I guess I just wish I had a lean body that I could basically wear anything and it'd look good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when I see people squandering their gifts, it's just.
No, I mean, I'm grateful for having a metabolism that I have, and I guess a lean body, but also
you put.
like-
I mean, you put a lot of work into it too. I mean, just
Yeah, I
because you're
mean,
skinny doesn't mean you don't have shit.
Yeah.
Things going on.
I also feel very, and when I say self-conscious, it's not. I'm not like losing sleep over it, but I have a longer neck. I have a smaller head. Like, there's definitely things where I'm like, I don't feel like I can pull off or wear a lot of.
You feel like I'm more handsome than you? Do you look at other people and you're like, that guy's got stuff I don't have?
Sometimes, but
About me
not too much.
specifically.
About you specifically. No, I mean, you and I obviously very different
Body type.
statures and body types, looks, and not saying that good or bad. Obviously,
No,
you can.
yeah.
I
They're
think
different.
you can pull off a lot more fashion stuff that I can't. Maybe you think I can pull off stuff that you
I think
can't.
it's a confidence thing more
Yeah.
than any physical attributes thing for you.
Yeah, I just certain T-shirts like with the longer. I don't know. There's certain things where I'm like, I don't think.
V-necks, you don't like.
Yeah,
V-necks.
V-neck.
I've listened to your pod,
Yeah.
and
Have I talked about the V-necks?
yes,
Can't pull. I've never.
yeah, I don't know. That's getting off on the wrong thing. I mean, I'm just digressing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Man, what a journey that had to
Yeah.
have been. Such a frustrating time. How are you not just pissed at the world?
As with just
Yeah, like
getting Lyme.
yeah, getting Lyme and then having to go through all that shit, or do you just feel grateful to feel better?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's easy to be bitter and upset, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah.
It's also easy to go, what if, or I wish I didn't get that, but it's like, I got it. I got Lyme disease.
Yeah.
These are the cards I was dealt. I can mope about it, or I can just
Yeah, you just have to be proactive.
deal with it.
Yeah.
And
Make
so,
the best of what you can, huh?
Yeah. All I can do is what I can control, and controlling my diet and feeling well from that. It's like, great. If me being on this planet involves me not getting to enjoy some tasty treats, that's a
Does
bummer.
suck.
But
I'd
also,
probably kill myself.
it's also such an extreme, like the anxiety and depression and like mental feelings from that is so extreme that it's like, I don't want ice cream. Like,
You'd rather it's
to
not
cheat and feel like that is not worth it at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it makes it easier to like
Sure.
people who have lactose intolerant or whatever,
What
and
are
they're
you going for these dopamine rushes then?
like,
What makes you feel good, warm,
like
and
a
fuzzy
like a
inside now?
vice.
Yeah. Or no, or just like, hey, I had a good day. I want to like keep that going, or I mean, is it just sex for you then? Is that your only
You know,
you can't eat some ice cream, so just go the
I
other
do have a very
cardinal
binge.
pleasures.
I do have a binge mentality. I think as a lot of people do,
So just
and so I would
binging
binge
sex.
on. Yeah, I would binge on sugar and food stuff
Sure.
before cutting that out here. But I don't really have. I mean, just being healthy, and
That's what you get off on. Is that what you're saying?
I just feel more even keel to where you don't get the urge to have that. I guess
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess if you want to put it in like, what's your vice then? What would you say? Murder?
Murder,
Straight up, yeah.
yeah. I'm
Seeing
like, I
the
eat
life
very
leave
healthy, but I do
somebody's.
kill a lot of people. Uh,
I think that's the only way I could live without eating ice cream and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
No, honestly, as lame as it sounds, people have asked me this before. I really don't have much of a vice. Uh, yeah. What would you say yours is?
Food, for
Food?
sure. Sugar.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I love it.
Anything other than that? I mean, food's a pretty common one, I guess, for people.
I
Do you
mean, I get
have?
some dopamine from lifting now, but I mean, it's not the same as, like, hey, I'm having a good time with my wife. We just had a great day. We go for a cruise around, grab some fast food, come back, we watch a show while we're eating, like that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
living for me right there.
I mean, I certainly little
Like,
things like that, like
yeah, being on
running.
stage, getting a good set in is nice, but I'm just thinking of like, life stuff,
Yeah.
enjoying these moments with my wife. Like a lot of it does revolve around eating for me.
Okay. I think the older I've gotten, the more, and especially with this health stuff, and then in turn that making me feel more present and more comfortable in my skin, less anxiety. Uh, that in itself feels great. It
Sure,
feels
yeah,
very
yeah.
good to go on
That totally
stage, to
makes
be
sense.
present,
Yeah.
to have conversations with people that aren't like when I'm eating
I
unhealthy.
do love
and
this, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know about you. This is something I've talked about before, and I'm surprised more people don't talk about it. But it's also kind of in the weeds on things. But when when you have a conversation with somebody and it's just like awkward, and then maybe the goodbye, you're like, all right, like the goodbye is weird, and you walk away and you hold on to that awkwardness beyond that conversation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
That is a good example of like when I'm not being healthy, kind of my interactions more of an anxious interaction, and maybe you're being kind of weird, and then the goodbye is weird, and then I go home and I think about it and it's like weighing on me, versus being healthy, being in the moment. And a lot of conversations, you're just in the moment, you're like, all right, see you later, you walk away, and that's a conversation you had in the past. You're not concerned about what that person thought about you or how the interaction ended, and if they thought it was weird, or how maybe you shook their hand, or did the fist bump and they went for the handshake, and you're like, oh gosh, I'm such an awkward person. You hold on to that anxiety.
Uh-huh.
But I don't do that as much or at all when I'm healthy, and that I think in turn just is kind of a good representation of how I feel in general, where you're in the moment, you're enjoying things, and you don't have these anxieties weighing on you. So just with that, you're like living comfortably,
Sure.
and that's
Sure.
kind of not necessarily a dopamine hit, but
you feel good.
it feels good. Yeah.
Uh Not what I was looking for, I guess, but that's fine.
Yeah. So my vice is just
Just
having
crazy
normal
sex with
conversations.
hookers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, you were talking about reading a couple books on creativity in the last podcast you put out. I have read Big Magic and the Rick Rubin book. Actually, I have.
Yeah, oh nice.
The Creative Act, a way of being.
Was recommended the books at a festival I did a couple weeks ago. There was a comic from I think Portland. His name was Niraj, and we were talking briefly, and he recommended those books, and I just bought them on the spot. Which I feel like I do. Like Ethan Everhart has recommended a lot of books. When somebody recommends a book, I'm so bad at
He only
choosing.
recommends presidential.
Well, I
fucking
filter out
biographies.
those. I go anything with not to do with history. Tell me what books you like.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. I was watching the final movie the other day.
Oh, great one.
I never saw it. Didn't finish it either. I need to watch it.
You just stopped?
Well, I was on family
You're on
vacation,
shrooms?
and
Okay.
yeah,
You're
I,
like,
I couldn't handle that final fight scene. It was too much. No, but tell me. So you've read both those. I haven't gotten through all of them, but very curious to to get through them.
Well, I was saying, the idea of the creativity being like this muse that comes to you, like the ideas are out there and they come to you, whether you're ready to accept them and implement them or not, I think is uh, something I latch onto a lot. I think that's true. I think it's like, I don't know, I like that idea. And that's something Rick Rubin talks about in this book. I know you're probably getting just cursory, very truncated summaries of these books from different people.
Yeah.
So I can see from your point of view, you're like, this sounds weird. I mean, you're just very dismissive of that idea, which I was like, no, dude, this is the truth right here, bro. This is how it happens. And so you don't think ideas like come to you. How do you?
Well, yeah, let me ask you to expand a little more on that. So Big Magic is
that's the Eliza Gilbert or whatever she wrote.
The premise of that is what you mentioned. Ideas come to you. So ideas are floating around.
Same thing in this one.
Okay. And so do you think everybody's kind of on an even slate and it's what you do with the ideas when they come to you that makes that person?
Elizabeth Gilbert wrote Big Magic. Just throwing it out there for the listener.
Like, is that your creative process when you're writing jokes, when you're writing, are you kind of just, when an idea comes to you, you pursue that?
Well, one of the big things in the book is, and it's not just them, but when the muse comes to you, it has to find you working. So that's like why people talk about like, hey, every day I go to my office and I have a cup of coffee and I'll just sit there with my computer from 8 to 10 or whatever. Even just every day doing that practice, so when an idea does strike, I'm there, I'm ready.
Right.
I'm ready to grab it and bring it into life in a certain way. I mean, I think ideas are coming to you all the time. They're always out there, but if you're not attuned to it, then that's the big difference. If you're open to it versus not being open to it.
Being closed off, yeah. I mean, I definitely, I think I mentioned it on my podcast, but my mindset is it's similar to that, but a little bit different. And again, I haven't read this. I'm not trying to dismiss the book. I just, from what I've heard, I think it's more so internal than external. Like if these ideas are floating, like from what I understand and from what it sounds like you're saying, these ideas are floating around and it's you just opening up to accept the ideas. I think it's more so internally.
Your hand movements are so funny.
Yeah, I just is this representing at all what I'm trying to say? But I think it's more internal, at least for me, where I'm trying to put myself in a position where I'm opening my brain up to search for thoughts and ideas within my brain, not ideas floating around. And that could kind of be the same.
Yeah, it's the same, but a little different, So you're thinking you're creating these ideas. These ideas are coming from you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something that Rick Rubin talks about in this book is like an idea is wanting to be birthed into the world, and if you're not going to do it, then it'll go to somebody else eventually.
Interesting. So he has the same mindset as...
Yeah, a lot of these things are similar,
What is your creative process?
I mean, I'm trying to be in a state of being where I'm open all the time, because and then and Rick Rubin even opened the book with like not being, you don't create art, you're just trying to be in the state of being where art is inevitable. The object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable.
Yeah.
That's a quote in the book, not from Rick Rubin, but from somebody else. But like, yeah, so when I'm in the shower, I could have an idea, and that'd be, and whether you're willing to capitalize on it is like the big difference.
Right.
People, any like creative person, I think is like, but the difference between somebody who like makes something with their ideas and doesn't is the person who like writes or does whatever art is like they're ready to act on those ideas. Have a piece of paper to write that down or whatever. And then they craft it into a joke or whatever.
Right.
For somebody who just has the idea and then lets it go.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think it's more the distinction I'm trying to make is probably coming off like I'm disagreeing more than I actually do. I think it's essentially the same thing. Yeah. It's like, are you acting on when you're having those thoughts? Whether those thoughts are floating around in the
I'm trying
air
to be open
or
all
you're
the time.
accessing them by opening your own brain and kind of... That's what I feel like I do when I write is I will pick a topic or start writing, and it takes 10 or 20 minutes of me kind of just writing and exploring that idea before my brain feels like it opens up to start thinking about things that I wouldn't have thought about unless I was 20
It
minutes
takes
in.
that time to open yourself up.
Yeah, it takes a
It's like a
second to kind of
meditation in a way. I
Yeah.
mean, everything, you got to warm up. You got to warm
100%.
up when you're working out. You got to warm up when you're doing mental shit.
Yeah. Is that what you do? Because you do a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Are you
yeah.
kind of just exploring the story, or do you
Yeah,
go
I
in
think about
depth
it a lot.
more to try to like really get into the nitty-gritty of topics in the story and try to dive deep and like what are different ways I can take this?
Sometimes once I have the initial like experience, and that's usually where the story comes from, uh I just talk about it a lot. I don't really write as much anymore. I used to like try and write it out word for word.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I heard Christopher Tice talking about like every line you have to have a punchline. So like write it out and then make a punchline every line. But now it's like I just talk into my voice recorder a lot. I re-listen to things, and then like I was talking to somebody else earlier. It's like if I'm in the sauna, like I don't know, for some reason that just like opens me up more to be like, okay, this avenue I hadn't thought about is like, oh, this joke needs to go. Like I could riff more on this idea
Right.
versus being over just trying to get to this point.
Right.
Just finding things as I'm going over it in my brain,
Yeah. Now that makes sense because that's kind of like you said, like a meditative
like more conversational type of
being
thing.
in a sauna where you're just kind of in your
Yeah,
own
yeah.
thoughts and you're like, oh, I'm
Yeah, driving a lot. My work is driving right now, so like
thinking
part
a
of my
lot.
brain, part of my brain being occupied, but still having enough free space for
Think
the
about,
subconscious to be working.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Do you like Christopher Titus?
Yeah, that was like my first big
Oh, really?
influence. I feel like
I'm not a big fan. I mean, everybody talks about, every line having. I understand that, and I think it's good practice to try to get as many punchlines as possible. But also, comics who do that, it's very hard to get a laugh off every line. And if you
Sure.
do, it just feels like because so much of it is building tension and breaking tension. And if you're getting a laugh every line, there's not that much tension that you've built. So it's like, okay, you got to quote unquote laugh every line, but was it a good laugh? And that's how I feel. And obviously, this is just my opinion. But with Christopher Titus, I'm like, I don't know. It's sure you got a lot of quote unquote punchlines, but I'm not really a fan of many or any of those jokes.
Yeah, it was like his show I really latched onto as a
Yeah.
kid because my parents are going through some stuff. We went through divorce and all that jazz, and he was the first person I saw really talk about
Talking
like
about it.
how dysfunctional people are the majority in the in the United States now, and
Yeah.
like so that makes functional, healthy people the minority, and
Right.
I really latched onto that, and
And just to point out, obviously, he's very successful and respect for that.
yeah,
I'm
but
not trying to
he does
put him down
not
as
do
a
traditional stand up. I don't think he does more of like a
one
one man
man.
show
Yeah.
stuff,
100%.
which I think I kind of like as well because I do like one of the reasons I like podcasting so much is it's not all beholden to the joke. Like not everything has to be set up
Yeah.
punchline. You can explore you can explore some more things.
That's the tough part because I would love to, like, I think we've talked about this before. I would love to do more stories. I would love to talk more about myself and stuff, but it's kind of the fine line of like, but it also has to be funny. But once you get to a certain level and have a certain following, then it's obviously easier to go into the one man show style where you're like, people already know about me, so they're invested and now they want to hear. And so I don't have to win them over with jokes. They want to hear about me. But to just kind of go in that from the beginning or when you're like not known is stuff. But that's different from podcast. I'm talking about
Stand up
stand up.
specifically.
But you had mentioned that with the podcast, didn't you say you were trying to do some more stuff to service the scene or find an angle to help? Is that still something you're working on?
Yeah. I mean, I read a book called YouTube Secrets, and there's talking about like how can you serve whatever niche you're trying to be a part of. And so I thought doing something like ranking open mics in Denver would be an interesting one. I had Ben Bryan on specifically to talk about, like, how he built his club and how you could get work there in a way. And, the idea was to have a good long form conversation, but then also have stuff I could cut up,
Right.
like have
Right.
from that hour plus podcast, I could get like 10 minutes on
Right.
whatever.
Put out there
like,
as
if
like
you want to
good.
get booked at this club, like this is how you should do it or whatever, because that's how you start getting clicks on YouTube. Because I do want to just get to a point where I don't have to have a day job and I could do this.
Right.
And that's, if you want taking it more seriously like that.
Right. Do you have a
That being said,
timeline
I
for
haven't
that?
done that yet. No, I haven't. I
As
don't
or a timeline for like
like job
full
things.
time? Yeah, like do you
No,
see if I do these things and grow at this rate in X amount of years, I can do this full
no, I
time?
haven't thought about it like that. I guess I was just like start doing it and then see. It takes as long as it takes. I guess
I'm surprised that there's not more
time
uh
limits on things.
no, more like information on the scene. Because when I first started, anybody who's first starting, you're like desperately looking for information about stand up, especially if it has to do with your scene. Now obviously that information is only kind of relevant to your scene, so it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
really probably relevant to a broader audience to a certain extent. But I've thought about it like on my podcast, like should I talk about it? But I feel kind of almost in a position where I'm like, I don't know, that might come off pretentious. Like who am I? I'm not. I haven't been doing it that long, and it
I
wouldn't.
still think of you as a newbie to the scene.
Yeah,
Although
I
it's hard
mean,
because I started here, so everybody who comes is new to me. You
yeah,
know,
coming up on 5 years, so it's like
in
I'm not.
Denver.
Yeah,
Oh shit.
not brand new, but also what are you 10 years? Like
Yeah.
it's there's so many people who have been doing it for so long. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long. To an open micer who just started, that they'd be like, oh, that's
Yeah.
been a minute. But yeah, what things have you thought about as far as other than like open mic rankings? Just
It's just stuff like with Ben and maybe get the Comedy Works people on, although that's a lot harder. Just things that somebody who is looking to come to the scene might look up. And I know a couple people have found me through like, hey, I was coming to Denver. I looked up Denver podcast. Yours came up. I
nice.
listened to a couple episodes, and that's I guess that's my niche right now. That's my audience. So I guess trying to cater to that. And in that book, they talk about you gotta get specific first, and then
What specifics would you give if
what I just
somebody
said.
was trying
Oh,
to come to Denver, or just starting comedy in Denver? Like, what would you say is a good generic path to follow, and like the things to do,
yeah, get
things
on
not to do?
5280. Start going to those mics. You got to hit it hard and often because if you're not around, people won't remember you. And that's like nothing to do with you. It's just everyone's got their clique, their group of friends. They're doing their thing, so you just got to have get some good material first. You got to go there, grind it out, sit there, wait for till the end of the mic if that's what it takes to get up. Like don't make yourself a nuisance. Like don't bother the host. Just those generic things that can apply to most things when you're starting.
Yeah,
Uh, there's no like, mountain altitude directions, like when you're baking or anything. It's just
right,
like, kind of generic when you're starting, I think.
right.
Don't bother the host, just be funny. Wait your turn.
Yeah, it is a lot. Like, it's one of those things where it's like there are a lot of specific things that you can say, but there's so many almost. Like you just went through probably like 20 things in
Yeah.
30 seconds. Uh, it. I
No
sometimes
one's
think
gonna
about
care.
that. Like, what would the best advice be? And as cliche as it is, it's like if you really want to do
Try
it,
not to take it personally that
yeah,
no one cares about you.
just go out as often as you can. And once you do that for a couple months and you're
Yeah.
out a lot, I mean, be nice, don't be rude, just be patient. But after a couple months, if you've put that time in, then going into some specifics, I think could be more helpful and would make more sense to people.
Yeah,
Eh,
hang out at shows, like try to be a fan.
Yeah. I see so many people like on Reddit. Are you big on Reddit?
No.
I deleted my social media app, so now I'm like hopping on Reddit, which I guess is still kind of a
It's the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, just
Kind
moved
of.
my addiction to a different forum. But a lot of people, I mean, it's the same question put in a slightly different way every day from a brand new comic. Like, tell me everything I need to know, what I need to do, and it's like, well, here's 100 little things that you'll pick up over time that are important. But if you've never gone out to your first open mic yet, telling you these 100 things, like,
Yeah, it's
I
gonna
can only
apply.
imagine them going to their first open mic. Like my first open mic, I'm just trying to
Yeah, just get
not
on
forget the
stage.
material. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm just trying to go up and not bail when
Yeah,
they
I
call
mean,
my
any of the
name.
stuff we just said didn't have to do with joke writing or
Yeah,
like actually like what is makes a good joke and all that jazz. It's just like
yeah,
just getting out there because really at the beginning no one expects you to be good, so no one cares really,
yeah,
and that's just honestly it's a gift. Because if you don't want people to remember how much you sucked at the beginning,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah. So it's good to go last and just be
yeah, you got to get
not
your
memorable.
reps in. Yeah, things like that. Yeah. 5280.com, I guess, is the biggest Denver specific thing because
Yeah.
it has all the mics and stuff.
Yeah. That's a good one. It's funny too because it's if you just start going out, if you go out for a couple weeks, within that couple weeks, you will 100% get like a very good lay of the land as far as what mics are happening, what shows are running.
I was thinking even whether you like it or not, like whether you could do this for years on end or not.
Yeah. Because all that information, sure, it's great to know, but yeah, you need to do it for a little bit to be like, do I want to do this?
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
It's a lifestyle.
there's no point in taking in all this information if you haven't even gone out yet, and then ultimately you go out and you go, ugh.
Yeah, this sucks.
I waited for 4 hours, and I have a
don't
wife
feel
and kids,
comfortable in
and
these places. Yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, well, now you just took time to research for hours and teach their own. That's fine. But I think a first step is just, hey, just go out.
You know what actually is a pretty good thing to look at is Mark Masters' book actually documents his first year in comedy pretty well. So
Yeah.
and that's specific to the Denver scene
Yeah.
pretty much. So
Yeah.
check that out, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, I wonder how many, because he name drops a lot in there for open mics. I wonder how many are still around. I think obviously Rover and
yeah, I think he talks about line. Well, maybe not lines there.
maybe.
I know he talks about my podcast, so there you
Yeah,
go.
there you go. You made
it's
it
got
in.
the LHRB bump right there, baby.
Nice.
But yeah, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And with a couple lightning round questions, okay, all meant to be in fun. Doesn't have to be one word answer, but
All right.
top of your head. What's your problem?
We all got problems. Just trying to deal with them as they come.
Who do you think you are?
Just a person trying to enjoy this life.
What gives you the right?
I guess the Constitution. I don't know.
The American one?
The American one.
Are you an artist?
Yeah.
What is art?
I'd say art is just expressing yourself. And whatever that is, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, is art for each individual who puts it out.
Pie or cake?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I'm gonna go pie.
Favorite kind of pie?
Oh man, love a good classic apple pie, but depending on the season, a strawberry or a peach, also very good.
Fruit pie guy.
Fruit pie, yeah. Grew up on some southern fruit pies and cobblers.
Yeah. Does art imitate life or does life imitate art?
I think art imitates life.
Where's the line between insanity and creativity?
Oh gosh, I don't think there's a specific. I think that's a very gray line that is very difficult to pinpoint.
You think you're better than me?
No.
All right, then. Well, thanks so much for being on. I let the guests sign us off however they see fit. So, however you want to sign off, I will say Wakanda forever. Be excellent to each other. But whatever you want to say, it's the culmination. Where can people find you? You got any shows coming up, things like that?
Yeah, check me out on Instagram at Ben Daily Comedy. I've got a podcast called The Weekly Daily Podcast. Other than that, yeah, just be good to others, enjoy your life, and you live once. Make sure it's a good one.
Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, man.